Let's get started here then, man. I'm again super appreciative of you coming on. Been looking forward to doing this one for a while, knowing who you are as an athlete and as a person, and as how the focus, I guess, that you put on the mental side of things. But I always like to start off these podcasts with this question: is when you hear the terms sports psychology, hear the terms mental side of sports, mental side of being an athlete, what's really the first thing that comes to your head?
Right now is a lot different than I would have answered maybe 10 years ago. But right now is like crucial. Like that's the word that kind of comes to mind, like crucial. Like it is so important, and it's the game changer, because like the horse can be prepared for battle, but the victory belongs to the Lord. So that's a quote out of the Bible, and I think that relates into mental health and preparation for a competition. Like you can see that you could, like any athlete can train as hard as they can, and they could train, like they could be the most trained athlete, but come competition day, if they're not mentally ready, then they could just lose. They could just completely not execute, or be distracted, or lose focus, whatever it is. So for me, crucial is what comes to mind right now.
Yeah, man. Just as you're saying that, it kind of brought to my mind, I see it all the time in the media, but it's the NFL draft or the NFL combine, where they put so much emphasis on the physical aspects, what 40-yard dash the guy runs, how many bench press reps he gets at 225, but then it doesn't always translate to the game, right? Like I think at any level, whether it's your level, Paralympic Games, Olympic Games, NFL, whatever it is, everyone has that physical skill, but you need that mental piece to be there in order to really, I guess, play at your full potential and use all your physical skills.
Dude, absolutely. It's like the Matrix, man. When you start enhancing your mental aspects, it's like, when Neo was like, had to choose the red pill or the blue pill. It's like you can start reaching certain levels of like awareness and heightened awareness or focus.
Right. You said this answer probably would have been different than 10 years ago. What did you mean by that? Is it just you didn't place as much importance on it back then, or you weren't aware of the importance of the mental side of things?
Exactly. So when I was younger, I completely focused on physical stuff, and I had a lot of drive and passion. And so I used that to mentally fuel me. And I wasn't really educated too much on the mental side until later. But as I grew in understanding how important it is to focus on yourself, or probably more importantly, how to deal with life. Like every athlete, every person can relate to having to deal with life. When life just comes at you, and bad things happen to good people and good things happen to bad people, and you're in the mix sometimes, and things happen to you that you are out of your control of. And how do you, at the end of the day, focus on being positive and focus on what you believe you were created to do?
Yeah, man, it's so true. I mean, life, they throws curveballs at you probably every day for people. Some of them may go unrecognized, but I think every person goes through some sort of curveball every day. And I really strive to people, and especially the young athletes that I coach or I consult with, I tell them, have some sort of reset routine that you have, where if something doesn't go your way, you can kind of take 5 or 10 minutes, or maybe even 5 or 10 seconds, just get your mind back on track. Because I think for a lot of people, when one thing starts going wrong in their life, they just think that everything's going to go wrong, and then they get that downward spiral. For you, when something in your life happens that you maybe didn't expect and it doesn't go the way you planned, or life throws a curveball at you, how do you keep yourself focused, looking ahead?
Dude, all right. So usually this is like what happens. So something happens to you, and you have an immediate, like, unconscious response, and you typically react in some type of stress. So everybody goes about it differently. Some people may be super calm. Some people may be like freaking out. So for me, like, I definitely, like, it depends on the variable of like where it falls along lines for me. But there'll be a point where I'm feeling stressed, and then I go into like this, like trying to process it, like figure it out, like why, like what's going on. Maybe why did it happen? Like, could I have prevented it? Like problem solving mode. And I go through this time just processing. And then I will either write about it, or I'll talk to somebody that's in my trusted circle about it. Cause that's super important, because you need like outside perspectives that have your best interest in mind, because we're in this frame and we can only see like us, but
Right.
we need somebody outside of the picture looking in to help, like maybe show us some of the things that we don't see. So that's really important. That like, that's one of my first steps to go to, is either writing it down or talking to someone about it. So if you don't have somebody to talk to, I write it down, because then a lot of times when you write it down and maybe you reread it, or as you're writing it, you're starting to like allow your thoughts to get out, like pen and paper, and it almost takes away like as much emotion or the stress, because now you don't have to keep it inside. So that's one like form of like self-therapy that I do all the time, is like writing it out. And a lot of times too, like if it's something like really big or what you think is like a giant, when you write it out or when you talk to somebody, you realize that you're like, dude, this thing actually isn't that big. Like once you kind of like write it out or something, you're like looking at it for a while, or after maybe a few hours go by, you're like, you know what, I can handle this. So those are like my first two like go-tos. And then it's a part of like me believing like, you know what, anything and everything that happens to me, I can handle. I was made to handle. That nothing ever that I'm going to experience, I'm not capable of going through. And I don't mean just by myself. I mean with the resources that I have as well. So like my physical, mental, spiritual, every part of me, and then the resources I have, friends, family, like I was given everything for a reason to be able to conquer anything I go through. And it may not feel like it always. And there's like days that are good and bad, especially if something happens to you. But that's what I try and focus on, that I'm capable of pushing through this, and like, what are the positives that I can get out of this? Because anything that happens to you, good or bad, you always can learn. And if you can pull things that you're learning from it, then it's like wins. You're like winning, you know, you're making grounds, or you're growing, like whether it's self-development, whatever area it is, but trying to find like the areas that are positive in it too. And so that you can focus on those things. And usually those are just things that you can control. So again, if it's something that happens to me, can't control it, okay, then I got to like give it to God and talk to some people about it, but try and bring it back to what can I control?
Right.
And just focus on that.
Man, that's and I couldn't say it better than myself. There's a lot to unpack there, a lot of good advice there. But the one thing that really stuck out was how you were talking about almost having an outlet, or putting pen to paper, your thoughts. I like to use the analogy of when you keep the thoughts in your head, they can grow and grow into something probably that it isn't, right? When you get it out of your head and onto paper, it can't grow on paper. I like to use that analogy. So once it's there, it's there. That's the thought, I guess. And like you said, when it's on paper, it has no real emotion, I guess, to it, or no value. When, of course, people, I think humans, we're in our heads a lot. So I would strive for anybody when they're dealing with something to just write it down. Get it out of your head. Don't let it manifest into something that it's not. Make it concrete and objective instead of abstract and subjective, I guess.
Definitely. And I think that like if you can start thinking about so for instance, let's say if it was like an insecurity, so not even something that happened to you, or maybe it's something that happened to you that created you to believe this, but insecurities, and like I know past experience for myself and like a ton of other people, we can create them to be such big giants. And then like when you write it out or whatever, or if you have somebody else like pouring positive things into you, like talking some truth about it, you can realize you're like, you know what? Like this thing that I thought was like such a big deal, it's actually not even a big deal at all. It's like when you write it out, like being willing, which is actually really tough. Like if anybody is listening to this and like they're going through like some problems, like if you write out your insecurities, you get to like look at this. And it's really, really hard to even write it out. I remember like struggling, like allowing myself to write out everything I've like ever been insecure about. And like when you do that, you like release the chains that bound you. Yeah. And you become like free.
Another thing I like to add to that too, I forget who said this. I'm gonna, I guess, regret not remember who said this, but it's like when you have the thought in your head, always tell yourself, who told you that? That's you kind of got to tell yourself. Because 9 times out of 10, if you think like, oh, I'm not good enough for this, I'm not good enough for that, I didn't play well, whatever. If you ask yourself who told you that, 9 times out of 10, the answer is nobody told you that. You're just creating it yourself, right? And it kind of goes along the lines of us being in our heads so much, and us, I guess as humans, we tend to focus a little bit on the negatives more than the positives. And I'm trying to figure out why. I'm sure there's some evolutionary psychology involved in there to keep us alive, 10, 20,000 years ago. But I think with a lot of things I've come to realize is the way that our psyche is, I guess, wired. It allows us to survive 10 or 20,000 years ago, but isn't really optimal to our present day environment. So I think we have all these tendencies, and I think you mentioned it before. There's kind of some subconscious, I guess, subconscious thoughts we may have, or subconscious motivations we could have that aren't necessarily the most helpful. And I think it's okay for people to recognize that your first instinct may be negative, but doesn't mean that's the right instinct, or that doesn't mean that's instinct for you. There's always room to write things out and to reflect and to move on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Knowing a bit about your athletic career, I know long jump is your jam, and I went back and I watched your highlights from the 2016 Paralympic Games. And one thing that was really noteworthy to me is, I guess, the foot that you jump off on, or the side that you jump off on, I think your prosthetic side. And I don't know if that was a challenge for you when that first happened, because obviously there's got to be more comfort jumping off your left than your right side, maybe naturally, irrespective of if you're left or right-handed or left or right-footed. But talk to me about maybe the first time you tried that jump and the mental barriers that there could have been having to jump off your prosthetic, basically.
Yeah, definitely. So you're right. So before my foot was amputated, I was right-footed. And so I played soccer, my dominant foot was right. So that foot was chopped off. And when I started getting into long jump, I started jumping off my left foot. And then I actually had stress fractures in that foot in my first year in track and field. And so later when I returned to long jump, I decided that I wanted to try jumping off my prosthetic because I had seen other people do it. So I knew it was possible. And then I just had to relearn it. So we started kind of baby steps of like little drills of like popping off the right, getting more and more comfortable and like hopping on your right foot, like just more and more comfortable of understanding the timing, the flex of the blade, and how to properly like use it, load it. So there's a lot of time doing that.
Yeah.
And my first time jumping off of it, it was in college. And, it wasn't bad because I think that I had spent so much time like doing these little drills that when it came time to actually jump and into sand, that it was becoming more natural. But it was an unnatural feeling to want to jump off my right foot again after training and being way more comfortable jumping off my left. And I think that when I lost my foot, my brain was like limiting myself from utilizing my right leg more. So when I would run and go to jump, I would hesitate and jump off my left. So I had to recreate this pattern of trusting myself to jump off of my right foot.
Yeah. You almost have to like rewire the way you think or your body reacts to things, because it could have been so used to reacting one way, and now here you are forcing it to the other. And like you said, another thing that I really strive for when I speak to a lot of younger athletes or anything along like that is starting small. Somebody could look at your case and be like, okay, I'm going to start jumping off my prosthetic leg right away, day one. You're kind of setting yourself up for failure, right? You got to kind of have that long and patient view of, just starting with maybe walking on it and then little hops and then little skips maybe, but just taking that, step by step, right?
Yes and no. Like, I think, so let's take it back to like cul-de-sac days or like playground days.
Right.
You didn't even think about taking steps. You just went out there and tried it. And then as we got older, we got like people taught us, progressions and whatnot. But I think that there should be some freedom of like fear of failure to just go out there and try. So like, just go out there and send it. Why not? Like, just have fun, especially if you're a kid, like just have fun. But definitely the way that you can progress and become better is doing those drills, like reinforcing it, no doubt.
Yeah. I think for some people, they kind of have that mindset. Like they just go out and do it. They're not fearful of failure, or in the environment that they were brought up in, that's kind of how they just were raised. So it's more natural to them. But for somebody that maybe is really struggling to take that leap of faith, so to say, wasn't really brought up in that environment, what kind of advice would you give to somebody like that is really struggling with just taking that leap?
I'd say number one, have fun. Like we always do better in sports when we have fun. So like think about like I would try and relate to them like maybe another sport that they learned how to do without having anybody coach them. So it could be anything. Like for instance, like I'll just use an example of my life when I learned how to surf. I didn't have a coach or anything. I just, went out there every day and tried, and I'd see other people surf, and you pick up on these things. And then like once I started being able to catch all these waves and surf, I started realizing I'm like, man, this should relate to like any skill that we're trying to do, that you don't necessarily need to focus on these little things that you're naturally, like your body and your subconscious will pick up on the skill that you actually want to learn just by spending time focused on it and then spending time away from it and not thinking too much about it.
Yeah.
So I think there's like, I would try and relate to them on what's another sport that you like to do? Like, and how did you learn how to do it? Like skateboarding, riding a bike, playing basketball. And I'd say, okay, like allow yourself the freedom to play. Just play, have fun. Because when you get those really good experiences, like when I caught my first wave, it was just one wave. That's all I caught like after an hour or two. I was so stoked when I went home, I couldn't wait to get back and surf again. And the next day it was like, maybe I got up and I fell off, but I was so stoked. And so it was like these little wins. You got to like really embrace those victories along the way. So I would try and help them, coach them through it, like having fun. And I'd probably have them do those progressions, but I would tell them like, just have fun.
Fun is so important. If you're not having fun, then I'm always of the mindset of don't do it if it's not fun, because we only have a finite number of years that we're alive. And I think it's way too short to be focusing any of our time on something that's not fun. Obviously, I mean, with some exceptions, there's jobs people have that they got to earn money and whatnot. But I think in the grand scheme of things, especially when we look at like your leisure time or your free time, you really want to focus that on things that are fun for you and productive. Because that's how you enjoy life. Control what you can control, I guess. Control the time that you have available and do something really fun.
Yeah, definitely. And so I think that's like anybody that's struggling taking a leap, just enjoy the process. Don't put a lot of pressure on yourself, because everybody learns and grows at a different pace. So like, don't compare yourself to anybody else. Like we all had to start somewhere. And it doesn't matter where we ended up starting, but we all had to start somewhere to get to here.
Yeah. When you started in long jump, did you have a goal in mind of where you are right now in your career? I mean, I believe you set the US record for long jump in the last Paralympic games. And then, we can talk about the 2020 Paralympic games and that cancellation and the mental struggle of that. But I know you were kind of one of the favorites for that event. But for you, when you first started long jump, what was kind of your motivation behind it or inspiration?
When I first started long jump, well, I was at a community college. I was at Saddleback Community College in Orange County, and I just wanted to try all these events. So long jump was one of the many events that I tried, because I knew that I had dreams of becoming a professional athlete, and I thought that was taken away from me when I lost my foot. And so when I saw that was still possible, I was like, dude, I'm not going to limit myself to one event. I want to try all these events, because I don't know what I'm going to be best at. And long jump was one of those events that I was consistent with, and I kept coming back to. Even if I took like a year or two off of training for long jump, I still was like, dude, I love long jump. And I would come back and I would do better than before.
Yeah.
So my progression in it is what like gave me that love. And like the fact that you got 3 tries till finals and then 3 more tries. So I love that.
Because man, that's got to be almost like a mental relief to knowing they have that many tries, I guess. And I guess it kind of speaks to the fact that you can have a short memory, not let one bad try influence the rest of your performance. But it's got to be helpful for those that are mentally strong to be able to utilize their, I guess, mental capabilities or the mental abilities that they're able to reset themselves and pick themselves back up, I guess, right? Like you're never out of it if you just mess up once. I think that's an important lesson, not only for long jump, but for people in general, that just because the first time didn't go well doesn't mean the second or third time wouldn't as well.
Yeah. And so along the way, like in long jump and in sprinting as well, What I started to learn and when I started to grow on the mental side and started having a lot more fun is when I started focusing on like just getting better at like maybe one thing at a time. And then no matter how the meet went, I would always talk to my coaches about it. I would talk about like the preparation. I'll talk about the execution on what I was focusing on, what I want to get better at. So not just an outcome, it was like the process. And so then I would look at my recovery. How was my recovery? So I would evaluate the whole thing. And then I would look at average jumps and I would record it all and I would get all these data points. And then, you know, if I like messed up a little bit on execution, but I did everything else right, then it was still a really good day. Like it's a problem when your preparation was not good and your execution wasn't good and your recovery wasn't good. That's a big problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you can control those other aspects, you know.
It's about being, I think, process focused, not outcome focused, like we mentioned a bit.
Yeah.
As long as your process is all there, you know, there's a 90% chance, let's say arbitrarily, that your outcome will be good. For some people, I think their process could be all there and then their outcome isn't what they expected it to be. And they think, oh, my process wasn't good. Let me just like reset everything. But we talked about it actually kind of related to what you said before, how like good things happen to bad people and bad things happen to good people. Kind of a little bit along those lines of you can have a really good process and a bad outcome. But on the vice versa, you can have a really bad process and get lucky and have a good outcome. But for nine times out of 10, if you have that good process, you can have that good outcome. And then, I mean, recovery, I think, is probably one of the more underappreciated things in sports, just recovery. I know for me, myself, I always struggled with stretching and never really truly valued how much stretching helped pre and post recovery, I guess, pre-event and post-event. But as I've gotten older and I guess more wise, I mean, I can't say enough about like recovery. For you, what does recovery look like for you? I got to imagine it probably varies practice to event or whatever it may be, but generally, do you have a general like recovery routine or things you try to focus on, physical or mental or spiritual?
Yeah, definitely. So it depends on if it's practice or a meet. Practice, you know, utilize my recovery tools or resources. So like maybe like an Epsom salt bath or an ice bath, or maybe just some compression boots or a massage or chiropractic. Like it just depends on what my body needs. So I'm pretty in tune with my body and I just listen to it. Yeah. And I allow myself to look at all options for recovery. And one of the biggest things is nutrition. So nutrition is really, really important for recovery because that's going to help me control my inflammation and my recovery. And then sleep. Try and get to sleep, like to bed early.
Yeah.
And then the mental side, journaling, dude, and talking to my coach. Talking to my coach before practice, and then like obviously during, there's some communication, and then after.
Man, nutrition is so huge, and I've kind of come to learn more and more that nutrition not only affects the physical body but the mental side as well. I guess indirectly, but like if you have a not so great diet, and then you'll have maybe low energy levels or whatever, that messes with you mentally. Like food is. And again, it's one of those things where I think earlier on in athletes' careers, they don't maybe put too much emphasis on nutrition. I know I didn't. And as I got older and started to do more research, it's like, wow, like the food is literally what's fueling everything in your body, your heart, your organs, your brain, your muscles, everything comes from the nutrition that you take in. So if it's not on point, maybe little blips here and there, little cheat days, little cheat meals, but generally if it's not on point, I got to imagine it's next to impossible to be able to succeed at a very high athletic level.
Dude, absolutely. Especially like hydration. Yeah. Hydration is key for performance, and especially at competition days when you're sweating a bunch. So yeah, it's good for recovery. It's good for that's part of the like preparation and the during and recovery for sure. So yeah, those are a few ways that I recover.
Yeah. We touched a bit about the 2016 games and you setting the US record in long jump. And I think for some athletes, there's a difference in the point they realized they set a record like that and the point that it sets in. For you, what was kind of that timeline? Did it set in like as soon as you kind of realized that you set the record, or did it take a while for you to really kind of grasp the situation? And what did that, I guess, feel like?
Dude, so it didn't happen until after the competition because I was so much in my zone and so focused on competing. I knew that I just PB'd. So I had my personal best, but I was still like, all right, lock back in. I like got cues from my coach and went over, just visualized, and I was thinking about the next jump, and I was like, let's go. I was just getting pumped up. I was just getting like focused and just ready to go again. And then like, boom, went and hit another personal best and was just staying in that zone until the competition was over. And then I was like, dude, American record? I was like, no way.
Yeah.
And then like, that's when I embraced it and realized it and could celebrate that fact, because I wasn't even focused on it. I wasn't thinking about it. I was focused on the process, and that was one of the great outcomes that happened.
Man, that's crazy. Yeah. And I like how you mentioned visualization in the middle of your event almost, because I know a lot of people that I just know in my personal life or whatever would do. First of all, not a lot of people do visualization, I think, at least not nearly enough as they should. I think it's one of the more important tools for an athlete. And me, myself, I saw so much value in visualization. Right now I'm huge into tennis, and just visualizing before a match, like me hitting a ball in tennis, I can't even describe. And I still don't understand why, but how much that helped my performance. I just seemed to play so much better. But it was so interesting to hear you say that you're doing that in the middle of an event. And I think that really speaks to the importance of being mentally focused in the middle of an event. Like, you're not going to let the big stage, the cameras, the crowd, whatever it is, throw off your routine. You're still kind of doing your mental routine. Same one you're probably doing in practice, I got to imagine. You're taking your routine from practice and doing it on the world stage, which is easier said than done.
Yeah.
But I think it talks about the mental preparation that's needed to succeed in athletics.
Dude, you're right. Yeah, and it did happen in practice before. And so when I got there, it wasn't anything new that I had to try and do and, experiment with. And for me, I'm always trying to get better and better. And if a coach gives me some information, if I don't understand it, I talk to him about it. And then if he helps me describe it, then I'm trying to picture it in my mind. I'm trying to see it, and I'm trying to feel it. And then I'm like, when it comes time, I'm like, just do it.
Yeah. Right now, what is the aspect of your game that you're trying to focus on most? Physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, whatever it is. But is there a part of your game, or you as an athlete, that you've been trying to work on? I guess, we've been in lockdown, not lockdown anymore, but a lot of people have had time to work on a lot of mental stuff during lockdown, right? But for you personally, what's been the one thing?
If I could pick one?
Or a couple.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, I don't think that it's one or the other for me.
Right,
for me,
right.
I'm focusing on all those things. And so I'll touch on all of them.
Sure.
So spiritually, super important for me, because I'm a Christian. So I believe that, like, for me, it's really, really important for me to have my devotional time, like first thing in the morning when it's quiet, where I can get my mind at ease and I can like talk to God about everything that's going on, good and bad. And then it really does like set the precedent for the whole rest of my day. So it puts me on like a positive note, no matter how bad my circumstances are. So that's like one thing that I try and keep consistent and continue to grow in. 2, mentally setting goals for the day. So like, what do I want to accomplish today? Like knowing that before I even start my day. So like that's spiritual as well. Like I write down my spiritual goals, I write down my mental goals, I'll write down my physical goals, and I'll write down any other goals that I have, like nutrition, hydration. So that's part of my mental, like, I guess workout or mental goal setting is like even setting the goals for the other areas of my life, because I need to be organized. I need to have like some structure, like some things that I can focus on the day that like, if I get distracted, I can always go back to like, wait, what am I trying to do today? What am I trying to accomplish? So those 2 things are like really, really helped me out during quarantine. And then 3, like maintain physical fitness. I don't need to beat myself up right now. For me personally, like my coach and I, we created a game plan, and we knew the areas that were best for me. And so for me, what was best was focusing on maintaining physical fitness and then recovery. So I've been like the past 3 years, I've been beating myself up and my body's taking a toll. So we decided to utilize this, and it doesn't mean like I'm going to stop working out. It means that we just decrease the volume a lot so that we can do something that's sustainable. And that also, like, just taking that down a notch allows me to like focus on other mental aspects. So like I can still visualize. I can still do all these other things that are part of my life that affect me. And like it's a time where I feel like you can utilize, like no one's going to hold you accountable, like pretty much. And you just make the most of this time right now to put yourself up in the best position possible for this coming year. So my coach and I, we talked about that. So we have that for physical goal, and that incorporates as well, like with my nutritionist, working on my nutrition goals and hydration, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I love there how you mentioned on the spiritual side, how you do that first thing in the morning. My experience with that, not spiritual, but more physical, and this is probably just a really amateur example, but it allows me to relate a bit, is going to the gym just regularly. If I go to the gym at say 8 a.m. versus 5 p.m., I know some people will say 8 a.m. That's still pretty late. I go 5 or 6 a.m. But 8 a.m. that's pretty early for me. If I go to the gym, it's just still the same workout, the same weights, everything's the same. The only thing that's different is the time of the day. But the effect that it has on me going so early, it just blows my mind. I just feel that much more productive. I just feel that much more clear. I have more clarity. Whereas if I leave it to the end of the day, it just kind of, I don't know what it is, but I just feel less productive during my day. It's hard for me to do things beforehand. So I always strive for people to just have some sort of morning routine, whether it's spiritual, mental, physical, or a combination of all three, because it just sets up your day for success, I believe.
Dude, you're absolutely right. So one of the things, like you just reminded me, one of the things that during this quarantine, like that I started realizing, I'm like, dude, this is like an awesome opportunity to be super productive. And so I decided to start waking up like before the sun rises and going on morning walks. And I started like just going on morning walks as well, and every morning. And I started noticing, I'm like, dude, the times when I would like wake up with a stiff back, by the time I got back from my walk, I was like, I feel great, dude. And I'm awake. Yeah. And so then it's like, I'm ready to tackle the day and focus on all these great things. And so, that's one of the things.
It's priceless. That morning routine, so priceless.
It's like whatever you can do to get your mind in a positive mindset before your day starts, that's money. Keep doing that.
And that's got to be super valuable even during a time like we're in right now with the coronavirus situation, because when you turn on the news, it's all negative stuff, whether it's coronavirus, whether it's politics, whether it's whatever it is, right? Having that perspective, I guess, in a morning routine, whether it could be as simple as going for a walk. I love that example as well, because I think for a lot of people, if they don't have a morning routine right now, the simplest thing they could do is go for a walk around your block, even 5 minutes. 5 minutes is better than 0 minutes. So just go do it. And I think a lot of people would be really, really surprised on like the mental clarity that they can receive, as well as like the physical one. Like you said, it helps with your stiff back. And so, man, there's so much awesome stuff that like physically, you increase your metabolism for the whole rest of the day just by doing a little bit of exercise in the morning before you eat. Same with if you were to like drink a big glass of water, like get that internal shower before you eat as well, like right when you wake up. So there's a lot of benefits of creating some type of morning routine of like, man, drink some water, go on a walk, and then listen or read something really positive and embrace that. And then boom, start your day, and you'll see that like every day just gets so much better. And the days that I don't do that, I'm like all off. I'm like, God, I'm like more irritated or irritable, and I'm just not me. Yeah. Like it's like that Snickers commercial. Like you're not you when you're hungry, you know? Right. You're not you when you don't do your morning routine. I love that. And I mean, the audiobook suggestion, I think, is a great suggestion as well. I know for me, myself, I mean, I've been really not struggling. I've been procrastinating on getting started on audiobooks. And I think I'm going to get started after this conversation here. But it's one of those things where people will say, I don't have time to read or whatever. I don't have time to do this. I don't have time to do that. But audiobooks or even podcasts, for example, are things you could just throw in, and you can cook while you do it. You can go on your walk while you do it. You can almost kill two birds with one stone, right? So that's something that I always suggest to people too, is if you're really crunched on time, or you feel like you're crunched on time, you need an easy starting point. Take advantage of those audiobooks, take advantage of those podcasts, because those are things you can plop in and continue on with your day, but you're still getting that that messaging, I guess, in your head.
Dude, especially if it's something like really positive. So I remember listening to Les Brown. I remember like times in my life when I was going through really hard times, like the first thing I would do in the morning was I would watch or listen to something really, really positive. Like, all right, back up real quick. Les Brown will come in a second, but E.T. So his video of the guy working out in the morning, and he's like, you got to want it like as bad as you want to breathe. Like, it doesn't matter about basketball games, this and that. And it's this video of this guy working out, and he talks about like these metaphors and stuff, and essentially like how bad you want it. I think that's what the video name is. And I would listen to that every morning before the sun rose, like when I was in college and when I had to go train by myself while still pursuing these goals before I made a team. And no matter how tired I was like, dude, how bad do you want it? How bad do you want it? But like now, fast forward to Les Brown, he said that when I was listening to one of his YouTube videos, in the first, I believe it's 15 minutes of your morning, when you first wake up, your subconscious mind is most susceptible to whatever you listen to. So whatever you listen to in that first like 15 minutes, whatever you think about, look at, that's going to dictate the whole rest of your day. And so when I realized that, I was like, oh, that's why I was working when I was in Boulder, Colorado, watching those videos. Mm-hmm. And that's why I'm attracted to like doing something really positive in the morning before my whole day, because it just changes my whole perspective.
That's got to be really an eye-opening statement, I guess, for I think a lot of people have the tendency, the first thing they do when they wake up is to go to their phone, and they're firing up Instagram, they're firing up Twitter, firing up Reddit, whatever it is. And I think a lot of people, they can control as much as they can those feeds, and it can be really positive. Maybe that's their morning inspiration, but more often than not, whether it's through people they follow, personal life, or Instagram ads or Facebook ads, whatever it is, there could be some negativity that's thrown in their face. So that's a really eye-opening perspective, that the first 15 minutes of your morning is when your subconscious is the most impressionable, I guess. I think you said.
Susceptible.
Susceptible. Yeah, if you fill it with negative thoughts, I mean, that's gonna, like you said, it's gonna influence the rest of your day, make you more irritable, more agitated, probably less productive, more lazy, whatever it is. You can go on and on, but that's something that I'm going to probably try and do now, because I have that tendency as well to go on my phone right away, and I'll try, and even I'll do it just to check the scores from last night. If my favorite team lost or whatever, then I'm in a bad mood, right? I should probably wait 15 minutes to check that score.
Dude, man, listen to that like YouTube video from ET. I think it's How Bad Do You Want It? I think that's what it's called. Bro, especially if you're going to go work out, listen to that, like, whatever it is, right when you get up or something, you're going to have the most insane workout ever.
I don't need any pre-workout that day. Just that video.
Yeah, I mean, maybe take it anyways. That way, it's even more heightened.
Yeah. Listen, man, one thing I like to do before I end off this podcast is I have a collection of sports psychology quotes. I have 23 of them. So I'll get you to pick a number between 1 and 23. And then I'll read you the quote, and then just reflect on the quote a bit, what it means to you. Maybe there's a point in your life or career where that quote really rings true. But you got a number between 1 and 23?
7.
This is, everyone likes to pick 7, but it's one of the best quotes here. It's from Doc Rivers. I guess now he's the 76ers head coach, not the Clippers head coach. But he said, good players want to be coached, but great players want to be told the truth.
Man, yeah, no doubt. Dude, the truth will set you free, man. So the truth, because it doesn't matter what is it? All right, so it just reminded me of like better wounds from a friend than kisses from an enemy. So like the truth can hurt sometimes, but the truth can help you. So like, let's say if a coach comes and corrects me and he tells me like, this is what you're doing. This is truth. This is what you're doing. This is what I want you to do. Okay, how do I get from here to here? He can help me. He can create that bridge, So when I hear that quote, I'm like, dude, that's the coach I want.
Yeah.
I hope he's positive too, because it sucks, man, sometimes if he could be just a negative one telling you the truth, because there's some yin and yang in there. You need some balance.
Yeah. And I think that really speaks to the detrimental effect, I guess, of surrounding yourself with yes men. I think a lot of athletes can fall into that trap where maybe their ego gets in the way, maybe just that's just how they're used to things going, but they surround themselves with people that only tell them things they want to hear. And of course, it's really hard. It's really hard to improve when your flaws aren't being pointed out. And so I think for a lot of athletes, when they get to the professional level, there's some aspect of them where their ego is tampered a bit, where they can accept that criticism. They usually have that coach or two coaches that they really trust, that they really value their feedback. But I think for a lot of maybe high school level, or maybe even freshman or sophomore level college athletes, it can be a struggle for them to be told that you're not good at something when they've probably been told they've been good at it their whole life.
Oh man. Yeah, it can be humbling for sure. But man, you want to be humble instead of proud, no doubt. And you want a coach that's going to take you to that next level. And the other thing too is, I think there's both sides. So there's coaches that say like, oh, dude, you're so great, this and that, you can do this and that, and like, they're just fluffing it up. And then there's coaches that are like, oh, you need to fix this, and you're like, whoa, dude. So you need someone for sure. Like, at least in my experience, you want a coach that knows how to, like, when to tell you, like, man, you're awesome. You have talent to reach here. And then we're just going to work on this, get this done, and then this, and then this. So it's like a ladder.
Yeah. There's a book that I just picked up. I'm trying to find the name of it now. It's on my reading list. Here it is. It's called Conscious Coaching, The Art and Science of Building Buy-In. It's by Brett Bartholomew. I picked it up on Amazon a couple of weeks ago, and it's on my reading list. But I picked that up because it's really interesting to me, the athlete coaching dynamic. I think just as much as coaches make better athletes, I think athletes have the potential to make better coaches. And I really try to look at that relationship more as just like a dual relationship. Like, we're both on the even level here. We're both helping with each other's professions. It's not the coach talking down to the athlete. It's not the athlete telling the coach what to do. It's got to be a mutually beneficial relationship where both people are benefiting from it and improving their skills, whether it's professional skills, athletic skills, whatever it may be.
Dude, 100%. And I think that's why my coach right now, Jeremy Fisher, and we get along so well. And there's times when, like, I'll come into his office and I'll just have like man-to-man conversations, and I'll just talk to him. And I'll say, like, this is what I think, like, we need to, like, work on. What do you think? Like, we both have the same goal.
Yeah.
So when we can, like, we both, like, when you realize, and I think maybe it's maturity of the athlete too, to be able to, like, maybe start having these conversations with your coach. But like, we both have the same goal of me jumping X meters, me winning gold medals. So when we come into a conversation, we have a meeting, it's very intentional, and he listens to me, and then I listen to him. And sometimes I'm like, well, what about this? And like, I'll continue to question, and then we'll go through a process of like talking it out. And then we'll both come to like an agreement, like, okay, let's try it out. Or like, no, yeah, we've decided that we think it's maybe either too much of a risk, or there's a time and place to try, and right now is not the time. But dude, that has been, I think, one of the best things that I've been experiencing the past few years working with Jeremy Fisher, because we can just have those conversations, and it's like, we just learn more about each other.
Yeah.
And
how did you and Jeremy meet?
We met a long time ago. I came down to the Olympic Training Center for a Paralympic like long jump camp, and he coached me then, and I wanted to work with him, and I was told I couldn't, not by him, by someone else. And it's like, man, that's a good rule of thumb. Never just take other people's word for it. Always go talk to the source. Mm-hmm. So needless to say, I just emailed him one time when I was looking for a new coach, and he had just coached me in Rio. And so I knew that I did really well with him, and I ended up hitting him up, and he's like, hey, like, I'm booked this year, but like, let's talk over summer. And so then I ended up talking to him, set up a meeting with him, and he's like, yeah, you're in, man. Let's do it. And since then, dude, it's just been so fun.
The rest is so history, fun, as they say. Yeah.
Yeah. It's, man, traveling with him, and he creates an awesome training environment. So it's a really good environment for me.
And it goes back to, I think, one of the first points we talked about in this podcast before we wrap it up here is having fun. And if you're not having fun, either it's not the right thing for you or you got to change something within it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, whether it's a team sport, solo sport, individual sport, whatever it is, there's that the coach is so important in making it fun. It can go really well where the coach makes it the time of your life and you're doing it 24/7, that sport. It's just so fun working with that coach. And then there's the opposite side where a coach makes it not fun 24/7, makes you almost probably start to hate the sport or to resent the sport. Again, just having fun. There's so many variables to around having fun that I think for a lot of people out there as they're listening to this, if there's something that they're doing where they're having the time of their life, I think they got to step back and take some perspective on how many things had to line up for this to be fun to them. There's so many pieces that are involved in something being so fun for somebody that just grab it and run with it and see where it takes you.
Dude, absolutely. That's like, man, that's probably where you find your calling. Like that's when you have the passion and you feel purpose in it. And you're like, dude, I just want to do this. Doesn't matter even if I get paid. This is all I want to do.
Yeah.
Dude, real quick, what was the number 2 quote?
Number 2?
Yeah.
You have a special affiliation with number 2?
Dude, that was my number when I was competing. So like in soccer, that was my number. And so I was like going back and forth between 7 and 2. And I just had to know what 2 was.
2 is a good one. We could probably talk about this one for a couple minutes as well. This is from Lou Holtz, I guess legendary Notre Dame football coach. I think he was. Hope I didn't get that wrong. But I believe Notre Dame. But he said, if what you did yesterday seems big, you haven't done anything today.
If yesterday seems big, you haven't done anything today.
Yeah.
Whoa. Wow. That one's a pause, man. Time out.
That's a process one. Yeah. We'll take a 2-minute break, get back to it. But that one is just so much to say. When I think of you in your career, the first thing that comes to my mind when I read that quote is you setting the US world record for long jump in the 2016 Paralympics. And then reading through your interviews, articles, whatever, and you having that perspective of it's all about 2020 or now this case 2021, but it's all now going for the world record. I think it was a German long jumper that you had mentioned that I guess he might have the world record now. Sorry. But it's all about going after that. It's all about, okay, I did this US world record. Great. There's still more to improve. There's more room for me to improve to reach the world's best. I think for some people, they reach what they view as the pinnacle and they stop pushing themselves. But it's always having that perspective of day by day. Am I getting better? Even if it's 0.01% getting better, dude, it's still better.
Yeah. You're absolutely right, man. And dude, if you can I remember one year, it was in 2016, I was thinking about dude, how can I get 1% better today? Every day. And I would write it down. And then I would focus on it. And I'd end up getting better at that plus some other things. And then I just started getting better and better and better. And I think that's what led to some success in Rio and where I'm at today. Yeah. But dude, you're absolutely right. And it's when you see that one man can do it, you're like, why can't I? It just takes one man. When Robert Bannister broke the mile record, the 4-minute mile. Yeah. So it just took, one man to do that. And then all of a sudden a ton of people started doing it. And then you have high schoolers doing it now. And it's this, you start to just believe. And so seeing the guy, the German long jumper, Marcus Rem, he's a great guy. He's a really great athlete. And I'm stoked that I get to compete with this guy and against this guy because he was the first Paralympic long jumper, amputee, to jump over 8 meters. And it's something that people would never have guessed, and thought of. And now you have all these other Paralympians are dude, it's possible. Yeah. And it's just believing that it's possible. And so when I think about that quote, I'm absolutely, dude.
Man,
if you thought yesterday was great, then you haven't done anything today. And it's today prepares you for that next, tomorrow, that bigger jump, whatever it is.
Yeah, man. Like you said, that's a heavy quote. I think that's a good place to end this off here, to give people some time to reflect on that quote in their own lives, and having that perspective again, man, of if yesterday seemed big, you haven't done anything today, and you got to keep pushing forward and forward, because that's the only way. There's always room for improvement. I mean, Usain Bolt hitting his world record, I mean, that's kind of like, it's been done, right? And it'll probably will be repeated over and over again in the next 20, 50, 100 years. But it's that perspective of, I think humans are almost limitless in their potential, whether it's physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, whatever it is, there's always room to improve. So just keep looking forward.
Man, definitely. Well, thank you, Adam, for having
Thanks,
me, man.
man.
It was a lot of fun.
Dude, this was a lot of fun. And again, little bit of a tough time this summer with the Paralympics getting postponed, but looks like all things are back on track. Are they still trying to plan 2021 in Tokyo as well?
Yeah, dude. I mean, man, it is what it is. It's out of everyone's control, but you can just take it for what it is and be like, "There's a blessing in disguise." Focus on what you can.
Yeah, I as a Canadian, I can't say that you'll be my number one contender for that, but
all right,
man, I'm looking forward to it, man, and I wish you, of course, nothing but a healthy camp, and I can't wait to see you back on that track.
Thank you, Adam.